right, guys, so this is for Ceramics 2 class. We are going to be working on construction for our mug, okay? So I have a large chunk of clay for you. If you were to pinch this whole thing out, that would be insane. Do not do this, okay? So what I want you to do is look at your clay and say, I want to take maybe, say this is, we've got thirds here. I'm going to say, I'm going to take a little bit more than a third of the clay off. Remember, you can use a piece of dental floss to easily, cut your clay. All right, so I'm taking a third off. Now, mind you, what do you want to do with this clay when you cut it off? You don't want to let it sit out and dry because, well, that's unfortunate when you do that. You want to make sure that you put it in your bag. So put it back in your bag. I'm going to put it down in my bag right now, okay? That being said, put that over there because that's going to be for other details and stuff. Okay, so here is my ball of clay. This is a fairly large chunk of clay. If you have really teeny tiny hands, you may struggle with this, okay? But do your best, all right? So I have my ball of clay. I'm getting it into kind of a roundish ball-like shape, sphere, okay? So I have my ball of clay. I'm going to take my thumb. And remember, how thick should this be? It should be between 1/2 of an inch and 3/4 of an inch. If you want to carve into it and do stuff like that, then you definitely want it closer to 3/4 of an inch versus 1/2 of an inch, okay? So you're going to take and push your thumb in, and you're going to pinch out the bottom of your project first. Now remember, one way that you can tell how thick 1/2 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch is, okay, so remember, my finger this wide right there, so that is 1/2 of an inch. So I can say, when I get to this right here, that's 1/2 of an inch. When I get to right here, 1/2 an inch, 3/4 of an inch, okay? So as I'm doing that, I can say, okay, I think I'm in between these two, so I'm good, all right? I'm not gonna rush this. I will do it faster than you do it because, hey, I've made like, I don't know, a few thousand of these, all right? You should take a little bit longer. Pinch out the base first. Keep it in your hand because if you're setting it on the table, what happens? You end up squishing it much wider than you want it to be. And then, oh, gosh darn it, it looks like a hot, hot mess, okay? So I'm trying to keep it kind of in shape. I'm not trying to make it giant. Remember, if you're stuffing your hands in, what happens? It gets huge. You don't want that, okay? So you're going to come through. You're not going to get this done in one day. This should take you a couple of weeks, okay? Because you've got to allow for dry time a little bit. You don't want to work on the whole thing when it's at this plastic state because it just doesn't work all that well, okay? So I'm going to test it. Say, okay, so let's bring that. That's about 1/2 of an inch. I don't want to squish it any more than that. So I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to twist this up so it's got this right here. Okay. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to test. I'm going to say, is this thick throughout, or is it this thick in between this thick and this thick throughout? And I've got some spots that I can feel are a little thicker than others. So I've got to make sure I go through. I'm taking my time. I'm not rushing because when you rush, you end up with spots that are super fat and spots that are super thin. And well, then it doesn't dry right. And when it doesn't dry right, well, it breaks, it cracks. And that's on you because you rushed it. Now look at the exterior. I don't have any major squish marks, I'm trying to keep it very, very, very simple. Don't get too thin. If you get too thin, guys, well, it just doesn't work all that well. Okay, so I'm looking at it like this. I can tell right here it's a little thick right here as well. Okay, so this is a you thing. You guys got to test this. Take your time, feel it out, get it even. Don't go too thin. Too thin is bad. Remember, we're going to add, so this is a pinch pot mug, but I'm going to adjust it some, okay? I'm going to add some coils on because right now it looks like a bowl more than anything else, but we're going to turn it into an actual cup. Okay, so I have this right here. So I want it to flatten out on the bottom a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to tap it. See, I've tapped it. It's already getting, see that right there? It's getting a little flat. Okay, flattening it. The goal is we don't end up with a thick area right here because if that thick area happens, then it doesn't dry right and it just, it's not good. Okay, so All right, there we go. All right, so for today, this is step number 1, okay? Step number 1 is I've created a flat bottom and the walls. Does this look huge? Yes. Yes, it does. As I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, whoa, that is one big cocoa mug. Well, guess what? It's going to shrink. Remember, think about when you had your projects, you turned them, you worked on them, they were huge, you turned them in, or as you were working on them, they started to shrink some, and then you turned them into me, and then I gave them back to you, and they're like 20% smaller. Remember, this is going to shrink. That is normal, okay? So this is step number 1 in the whole pinch pot mug project, okay? All right, you've got to let it dry until it gets to not dry out. Remember, wrap this up in your on your board, in your bag, no moisture on it, for at least 24 hours. And then you bring it out and you check it and you say, okay, where's this at in the grand scheme of what it needs to be? To really start adding your layers on and everything, you can probably wait. You could probably add some coils on now, but I'm going to wait until tomorrow and add some on. Or I'm going to pretend like I'm adding them on tomorrow. I'm going to do it today. So, all right, this is where you're at. Wrap that bad boy up. We want to work on it through the soft leather hard, because once we get to the firm leather hard, that's when we do our carving and our details and make it look awesome, okay? All right, good luck.